At my sister's graduation, my parents laughed into the microphone and said, "We should have stopped after her. Our second child is useless." The room roared. I remember that more clearly than anything else. Not the applause when my sister received her diploma. Not the photographs. Not the flowers. The laughter. It came from people who barely knew me, people who thought they were hearing a harmless family joke. My parents were smiling. My sister was smiling too, though I couldn't tell whether she was embarrassed or simply afraid to stop. I stood near the back of the hall, holding a paper cup of warm punch. For years, I had been the child who didn't quite fit. My sister was brilliant, organized, confident. I was quieter. I changed jobs twice. I struggled to find direction. I made mistakes. My parents had turned those mistakes into my identity, so when my father handed the microphone back and laughed again, something inside me finally moved. I said, "If that's what you really think of me, you could have said it privately." The room went quiet. My mother stared at me, then she rolled her eyes. "Oh, please," she said, "don't ruin your sister's graduation because you're too sensitive." That sentence hurt more than the joke because I suddenly understood there was no version of this conversation where I would be heard. So I put down my cup and I walked out. I cried in the parking lot. I cried because I was angry, because I was humiliated, because some small, stubborn part of me had still believed that one day my parents would look at me and see something worth being proud of. That day, I stopped waiting. I didn't announce that I was cutting them off. I didn't send a long message. I simply stopped going back. 7 years passed. I built a life that had nothing to do with proving them wrong. I found steady work. I made friends who didn't need me to perform for their approval. Eventually, I started my own small consulting business. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. And slowly, the word useless became something I remembered rather than something I believed. Then, 7 years after that graduation, my phone buzzed. My mother's name appeared on the screen. I stared at it for nearly a minute. Her message contained 6 words: "Comb home." "Your sister has nothing else," I called. She didn't answer. I called again. Still nothing. Then my father picked up. His voice sounded older. He told me my sister's business had collapsed under serious financial pressure. There were contracts she had signed, obligations she hadn't understood, and a legal deadline approaching. They had already spoken to several people. No one would take responsibility. Then my father said something that made me sit down. "Your name came up." I almost laughed. "My name? Your company handles this kind of work." I understood. They didn't need their useless second child. They needed the person that second child had become. I went home, not because they had earned my return, because my sister was still my sister. The house looked smaller than I remembered. My mother hugged me. I stood still. She whispered, "We've missed you." I wanted to ask why she had waited 7 years to say it. Instead, I said, "Show me the documents." For 3 hours, I reviewed everything. Then I found the problem. My sister had signed an agreement that placed responsibility for a major debt on her personally. My parents had assumed there was nothing they could do. There was, but only if we acted immediately. The next morning, I brought in a lawyer I trusted. My parents sat across the table while we explained the situation. My father tried to interrupt. The lawyer raised one hand. "Please let her finish." My father stopped. I looked at him. I remembered the graduation hall, the microphone, the laughter. Our second child is useless. 7 years later. He was sitting silently while a professional explained that the person making the decisions was me. Not because I had demanded their respect, because I had earned my own authority long before they noticed it. We managed to protect my sister from the worst of the consequences. Not everything disappeared. Some damage couldn't be undone, neither could the past. When it was over, my mother asked if I would stay for dinner. I looked around the room. For the first time, I didn't feel like the unwanted child standing outside a family I was desperate to enter. I was simply a woman who had come to help someone she loved. That was all. "I can't stay," I said. My mother nodded. At the door, she stopped me. I'm sorry, she whispered. I believed that she was sorry, I just didn't know if I could ever believe that she understood. Maybe that was the part I had finally stopped needing. I walked to my car. 7 years earlier, I had left their house in tears because I thought losing my family meant losing myself. Now I drove away, knowing the opposite was true. I had lost their approval, their version of me, their place in my life, but somewhere along the way I had found myself, and this time I didn't look back.